Elle Duncan. She is an ESPN analyst and she has the Elle Duncan show. Yesterday, she was on with Gary Streisky. Elle seemed to blast Sheryl Swoopes about a comment she made on a recent episode of her podcast, Queens of the Court. Duncan issued an apology this morning to Swoopes after blasting her without the full context of her quote. So this is what happened. Duncan is claiming that her producers pulled the quotes for her and that's the only context she had. I'm going to read you the quote that she was given. Is Indiana in the playoffs right now without Caitlin? When you look at the overall team, like the pieces that they have, without question, Indiana has better players than Chicago, from top to bottom. Now that's what Duncan apparently got. And this is what Elle Duncan had to say in response to that quote. It just feels like there's something there, Duncan said, and I'm not really sure what is not connecting with Sheryl. I don't know if some of that is driven in sort of the hurt she felt from the fan base or some of the attacks that were leveled at her after she had those comments a few months ago. But this feels really, really, really off part. This just doesn't feel right at all, and it is starting to feel like hate from Sheryl. Now, I will read you the whole quote from Sheryl Swoopes, including the part that Elle Duncan did not receive. I don't know if Chicago is in the playoffs right now without Angel, right? Swoopes said. Is Indiana in the playoffs right now without Caitlin? When you look at the overall team, like the pieces that they have, without question, Indiana has better players than Chicago, from top to bottom. Swoopes explains that she's talking about the overall talent of each team's roster, not individual players. Again, Elle Duncan issued her apology this morning, and I will read that to you as well. I reacted to Sheryl Swoopes' comments about Caitlin Clark based on quotes pulled from me by the producers in the rundown, Duncan said. I should have listened to the show, the same thing I implored Caitlin Clark fans to do when they were attacking me a couple months back for hating on her. I hate that I've sent more vitriol her direction and I'm taking this big L. I've texted Sheryl the same thing. I will do better. I am sorry.
Now, someone did take a loss in the basketball world this week, though, and I love her, but she's wrong here. Sheryl Swoopes, former WNBA player, we all know that, current host of Queen of the Court podcast. She had some thoughts. She's had some thoughts previously about Caitlin. She would later have to apologize of those thoughts being uninformed, she shoots like 60 shots a game, just being a little bit inflammatory and critical without any actual analysis. And she apologized for that during the women's college season. And she's now stepped in it again by saying that Indiana is in the playoffs right now without Caitlin Clark. By saying that like Katie Lou Samuelson's really more integral in terms of her two-way ability than Caitlin, and also saying that, and I don't besmirch her for this because lots of people are making arguments for whether they think that it is Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark that should be Rookie of the Year. I've said that I think it's Caitlin, but that I could understand someone making an argument for the other. It's not hate to make an argument for Angel Reese. So I don't take any issue with that part. But the other part, it just feels like there is something there, and I'm not really sure what is not connecting with Sheryl and why. And I don't know if some of that is driven in sort of the hurt that she felt from the fan base or some of the attacks that were leveled at her after she had those comments a few months ago. But this feels really, really, really off par. This just doesn't feel right at all. And it is starting to feel a little bit like hate from Sheryl, who just in this particular space, stop. If the Fever, who won a handful of games last year, are in the playoffs this year, then you have to understand that a large part of that is Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Either one of them. I would have accepted either one of those.
Kelsey Mitchell, too. I mean, listen, and you are way closer to the space, to the WNBA space as I am. So I understand you will cross paths with Sheryl Swoopes. So you have to be sort of cautious the way we deliver this about a Hall of Famer, a champion in Sheryl Swoopes, but she is tripping. What is she talking about? The Indiana Fever won 13 games last year, and they were an 11 seed, or they finished 10th out of 12 teams. Right now, they are an 8 seed. They are in the playoffs, 2 wins away with half a season to go to get their total wins from last year. Caitlin Clark leads the team in every statistical category but rebounding. I don't understand what corner you can look at with this argument she's making and be like, you know what? There's some validity there. That's insane. You could make the argument that the Chicago Sky are worse than they were last year. And last year they were a playoff team. That's crazy. They're on the fringe. So anyway, I know that you've compartmentalized into those being 2 different discussions, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, that's standalone. But this whole this beef that's very much one-sided, Sheryl Swoopes to Caitlin Clark, is insane, dude.
And again, I think like, so much respect for Sheryl Swoopes, who she is a person, the things that she's overcome, the player that she was. She is an OG, and certainly so many of these young women stand on her shoulders, but this just doesn't seem built in reality or fact.
No.
Like if you want to make a really critical, analytical argument and you want to support it with research or whatnot, I get that, or even just support it with your own opinion. But this just feels, it feels like it's just not true. It just feels like you're intentionally trying to minimize who she is. And the positive, if I'm looking for one positive in all of this, though, is that if this happens a few months ago, this becomes, see, the women of the W are hating on Caitlyn and they hate her. And we've covered that on this show plenty. What I appreciate is that with time and with the benefit of hindsight on our side, I am noticing much more calm in terms of people saying, this is her opinion. This is not the opinion of everyone in the W. I think there have been enough cases of women in the W over the last few months supporting Caitlyn, showing their support. I think there's been enough of that now that people can now take something that's seemingly inflammatory and give it and lay it at the feet of that person, as opposed to making it an entire diatribe on everyone in the W and how all of these Black women hate Caitlin Clark. So I will say that's the positive. If this has sort of purely been put at Sheryl Swoopes' feet, like, I don't agree with you here, Sheryl, I'm sorry, as opposed to where it was a few months ago, which is, this is just another example of just the insane amount of hate that's coming her way. I think we've moved past that. I hope so. And I think that this is the greatest indication that we have.
Okay, cool. Cheryl just needs to chill. None of it's true.
Do you know what? She needs to chill out.